Hey YouTube, it's been a while since I've put up a video. I'm feeling a lot better than I was. Still have some lung congestion. I got very sick over the last couple of days, actually last few days. Um, my mother came in from Spring and we went out to eat. Well, she had been sick while she was in Spring, and so had her mother, who she was taking care of. And I don't know if that's where I caught this from, but I had the weirdest flu-like bug. Um, normal flu-like symptoms. The flu is usually long-lived, but for some reason this one was not super long. I had the nose, eye, and throat, all of that. Inflammation, congestion, drainage, and also had the gastrointestinal problems that went with it. And I almost had the lung problems. I am actually coughing stuff. My lungs they feel like they're full of cotton, if that makes any sense. But it's not as bad today as it was yesterday. I seem to be getting over it pretty quick, whatever it is. So at first I thought it was the flu, but I'm starting to wonder if I was wrong about that. Also, in other news, one of my friends who watches this video, I don't know if he wants me to give out his name, but one of his uncles just passed away, so our thoughts go out to him. And he was going to visit this week, but I didn't want to take a chance of getting him sick with whatever the heck this is or was. So like I said, I'm not fully over it yet. I still... I mean, it's in there. And I don't know if it's through being contagious or not. But apparently, whatever it is, I mean, I got it within a day or so of seeing my mother, maybe 2 days. And I don't know if it was that or this Mexican restaurant we went to. I felt sick immediately after eating there. But it wasn't like conventional food poisoning in that it was very flu-like. I had bad sore throat and burning nose and just, it was awful. And then it went into the gastrointestinal thing, and I was like, oh God, here we go with the flu. And I honestly thought I was going to be sitting here very sick for at least at least a week or two. Which usually when you get the flu, it runs its course in about that long, and then you have that lung congestion and crap for a lot longer. It takes forever to cough and cough all that out and get yourself breathing right again. Some shortness of breath still accompanied with it. And definitely am not at full capacity. But other things that go on in the news, the lights are dim in here because we have a storm, and it's a very weird thing. I've been watching the weather map as this storm passes, and we have this shape. We don't get rain a lot of times when storms come through here. And I had a hypothesis, just a brief inkling, so I cranked up AccuWeather and I watched the rain pattern as this thing started approaching. And we have an area of dryness around this town that holds an almost perfect shape as storms go by. It's very unnatural looking. The storm literally is encircling us, and it is going around on either side and then joining back on the other side. And when I look at it, the circle, the shape that it makes, almost holds a constant shape. It's almost like something is holding it off. I don't know what it could be, and I'm not a conspiracy nut. Maybe there's some natural feature of the terrain that does this. But I'm going to continue to watch the weather maps when rain is forecast and see if this thing is consistent. Because the border of the dryness hardly moves. I mean, it changes some shape, but there's definitely something there keeping it from raining. You can look at it, you can look at the data, and you can see it on the map. Especially when you animate it and the shape doesn't change, but the storm kind of bends around it, So, I don't know. That's about it, really. I mean, the tomato plants, they've all but died. Everything is, We got a soaker hose, but I think it was far too late. I figured out with the garden what the heck it was that was causing the problem. If you water it too fast, the soil out here will shed water. It'll just roll off down the hill. You can put gobs of water on it, and it just rolls down the hill and forms a lake somewhere else, and the soil actually gets very little. And I found that if you water it slow, the water will soak in. So it was a sprinkler hose. I thought it was a soaker hose, but I just turned the pressure down and it's doing its job. But you water it slow, and the soil will actually absorb the water, and the plants were a little greener. And the way I figured this out is always after a big rainstorm, when everything got saturated and there was nowhere for the water to run because it was everywhere, the plants would always do better. They would always have a lot more green after the storm. And that's how I figured that out. So I got that hose and coiled it around the garden and cranked it up. And after discovering that it was a sprinkler instead of a soaker, same black rubber, they just punch a bunch of holes in it. I turned the pressure down and let it saturate the soil. And for a brief time, the tomato plants perked up. That one tomato that one made was rotten on the vine. Something sliced it, and it cankered on the vine, and it dropped it. I touched it, and it just fell off. So hopefully now that plant will devote most of its energy into maybe putting its growth back on, and who knows, The little Cherokee purples didn't bear anything. And I have heard all over the internet, I've been asking people on YouTube and other places who have gardens, and a lot of them are saying the same thing. Crop yields were terrible this year. We didn't seem to have as much of a drought as we did last year or the year before, but and all around here, people I've asked in the family and uncles and relatives who have gardens, they all said the yield was terrible. Stuff didn't even make. It grew. Lots of stuff grew. But it didn't yield any fruit. It didn't yield any vegetables, or very, very, very little. This, in the old days, would have been a year that there would have been some starvation. Before we had the modern technologies we have now to move things around from different parts of the world. But I don't know what's going on with the crop yields. And apparently it's everybody that I've talked to so far has been either in Texas or east of Texas. And even TechMan, Troy, on the channel that I watch, the Off-Grid Camper Project, his stuff yielded, but he had pests get most of his tomatoes. But he's having an early die-off of a lot of his other plants, his cucumber plants and his squash plants and other things. And it is weird. Usually our growing season goes way on past into October. We're still harvesting up till about then, and then the die-off starts around the end of October. But this year has been bad. This year has been bad for everybody. My aunt, who lives in Newton, her name is Hazel. They have a garden that they keep in the back. They keep chickens and other things. And they were saying their yield was terrible this year. And the only family member I know that had any vegetables to speak of was my mother. Of course, her garden is partially shaded, and I think that maybe what's going on is these plants that normally grow in full sun were getting way too much sun this year. Way too much heat, and it was sapping the water out of them. Plants up to a certain point, when they become uncomfortable, they don't grow, and they will die. And I think that's what's going on nationwide. I'm not sure. Maybe the UV levels are too high. Plants don't do well. It's a misconception. People think plants need UV to grow. UV is actually detrimental to plants. It damages them. There's been experiments that show that plants do amazingly well when you strip the UV component out of the light. So anyway, that and not much else going on. Been cutting grass and doing all those things. And cat continues to get bigger, and it continues to eat. Dog continues to eat and get bigger. Though I think I'm about to have several cats over here. Got to figure out what to do with them. I got a couple of them that are already spoken for if they look like the mother, and you never know, because I'll tell you, I know the one that mated with that cat. It's the ugliest possum-faced gray cat I've ever seen. So I don't know what the offspring are going to look like. But I figure the ones that I don't adopt out, they're going to the Humane Society. We don't have resources to keep multitudes of animals and people here. And that's pretty much a decision I made. So, y'all know, I'll show y'all the kittens, I guess, when they're born. And if anybody wants one, if you're local and you can pick it up, you can have it. Otherwise, off to the shelter it goes. So, and that sounds cruel, but it's like I said, you know, we all have to eat here, and we all have limited resources here, and we can't be spreading thin, and thinner still. So, we'll let y'all go. Y'all have a good one, YouTube.